The GAA Hour is sponsored by Paddy Power. For exclusive content from their GAA ambassadors and other high-profile contributors, check out news.paddypower.com.
Alright, so we're doing a show on Wednesday because we are off the Hayes Hotel tomorrow night. We have a fantastic lineup. It's a live show. We have Babs Keating, we have Richie Bennis, we have Andrew O'Shaughnessy. They're going to relive the trilogy of games back in 2007. We have Lar Corbett, Cheddar Plunkett, and we have Michael Ryan, who are going to analyse the game. Then we have Shane McGrath, and we have Redzer O'Grady, who might be joined by Babs Keating. We're not sure, and we're going to talk about the Borrisoleigh 5.
Bringing the gloves, Wooly.
Yeah, so we're going to have to talk. Do you know anything about the Borrisoleigh 5, Mick, here in studio?
No, just the rumours that go around, the usual ones of the few phone calls and that. But it should be interesting when they meet up.
Yeah, Michael, do you remember the Borrisoleigh 5 in 2006? Tipperary lost to Cork in a Munster final, and 5 of them went on the beer, and there was a big controversy. Do you remember this going on?
I can't believe fellas are going to be after losing the Munster final. I was surprised to hear that.
They went on it on the Tuesday, the day they were training, which probably cranks it up, maybe a little notch even for me. But anyways, it turns out that Redzer, who was captain of the team, ended up getting completely dropped off the panel. So we're going to go through that with the two lads, and hopefully Babs will join in the chat. So listen, there's still tickets available, so you know what to do. Go on to sports.JOE.ie and you'll be able to apply for your tickets there. Right, we'll get into this, lads. And Michael Ryan, I wanted to ask you about some comments you made last year. And you were talking about the media coverage of the Joe McDonagh Cup, and you said what would I say is that the media coverage has been very poor, particularly from a television point of view, which is a problem for players. When you're trying to promote the game in these counties, a little bit of better coverage would be good. Overall, it's been a really good competition, and what I particularly like is the even number of counties, meaning no teams have a bye. So that concept is working well. Well, anyway, that's changed this year, but just your point on the coverage, because you were pretty vocal about that last year, Michael, and to be honest, not much has changed this year, we've been saying on the show here.
Absolutely, the penny hasn't dropped. I think the coverage has been of a very similar nature, very, very, very poor and very disappointing. I mean, we've had some really good games, and it's an excellent competition. And people should remember, it's a stepping stone to playing in the McCarthy Cup. And it's, you know, for those counties, it's a very, very important phase in their hurling history and in the progress, in making progress in the game. And very disappointed. Practically covered, is practically nil, even at the newspapers. There's only a few lines, and it's kind of just more or less filled in spaces. So nothing has changed with that regard.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And would players comment on that, or would they be disappointed in that after a big win, or would they care, or are they just looking at the next game?
Of course they care, and I mean, to me, the obvious thing to do is, you know, maybe give the rights to TG4, or give it to somebody else that's willing to show the games. Because if RT haven't got time, and that's fair enough if they haven't got time. But surely there's a slot out there for somebody. Yeah. And the standard of the hurling has been of such. I mean, there've been some absolutely tremendous games. You go back to the Laois Westmeath game a couple of weeks ago. They ended in a draw, a high-scoring draw. There have been some very good games. You know, Kerry have been involved in one or two cracking games as well. Even the game against Offaly. And it's funny enough, the only real coverage that it got was the demise of Offaly, and that's very disappointing. Yeah. Because I know Offaly, and I hate to see Offaly go down. But also, I mean, this is not just about Offaly. There's some the other counties are equally important, but it's all about how Offaly hurling has fallen, and no real talk about the competition as such.
Yeah, no, that's true. I had Tom Ryan on the show here. I think the Kerry Westmeath game was a classic up in Cusack Park as well. I had Tom Ryan on the show here, and I said that to him, Mick, here in studio, that I said, why don't you sell the Joe McDonagh Cup to TG Carr? If it's on TG Carr, like potentially journalists a trainee journalist could watch it on the telly and do a report off the telly rather than even going for it if resources aren't that strong. And you know what he said to me? Oh, that's not a bad idea. They hadn't even thought about this. Like, I mean, which is very disappointing.
But it shows their thought process, Willie. Like, even on a Sunday game, they might show a clip of 2 minutes, if anything. And it's just, we'll put it in because we have to. And I don't know, it's a huge lack of respect, because some of the best games I've played throughout my career have been against Laois, Westmeath, Kerry, and some of the hardest lads I've marked have been on them teams. And the public don't see that. Like, if you're not watching these teams, you've no idea the standard of hurling. And some of them are brilliant hurlers. And I think it's just disappointing all around. TG4 have been brilliant. I've been brilliant at showing club games throughout the year. And I think why wouldn't it be handed to him? Because we'll open the public's eyes into the standard of hurling and some of the hurling that's going on at this level that we will never see. You know.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think we'd all be on that same wavelength. Big news coming out of Wexford is Aidan Nolan is going to be suspended for Sunday, lads, and we know what happened here. So it was a very weird one. At the end of the game, he thought Wexford had lost. He thought that the referee hadn't played the 4 minutes of injury time that he should have, and instead he abused the referee. Apparently he used abusive language towards the referee, so he's out. So it's disappointing. He'll actually miss. I think he's out for this one. He got a 2-game ban, so he'll miss this one and the next one. Yeah. So like, I mean, it's hard to feel too much sympathy for him if he was abusing the referee. It's almost comical, isn't it, Mike here in the studio?
Oh well, it's silly, like, you know. I don't know how offensive he was. I don't know what he said to the ref. You'd love to think that the ref would say to himself, look, he made a mistake. Don't have that much of it.
Yeah.
I don't want the lad to miss the Leinster final, and they're huge games to miss, and he's a big player for them. But look, I don't know what he said. It could have been really bad, and he might deserve it, but it's just silly, like, you know. I suppose it goes to show that at the end of the game, no one knew what was going on, players included. Like, you know? So with all the permutations going on, like the heat of the moment, you got a bit carried away, and it's sad that lad's going to miss Leinster final because of it. You know?
Exactly. Michael, on the line, like, I mean, you know the way managers lose their minds with players for talking back to a referee, getting a free moved up, abusing a referee. I'm not sure you could even get as annoyed with Aidan. He thought Wexford were out of the championship. Like, I mean, would you even be annoyed with him for this?
Well, I don't know how that could happen, because at the end of the day, I wasn't in Wexford Park for the game, but I'm sure the scoreboard was working. Yeah. And that should have told the tale. But look, I mean, getting involved with referees is futile. I've never seen a referee change his mind. And what I've noticed with referees over the years is when you continuously get onto referees, all happens is the next 50-50 free, it goes against you. Because referees are human after all, and they can't take that kind of criticism. Disappointing for them to lose, to miss the Leinster final, because in fairness to Wexford, they're having a decent campaign, and there's probably a 50-50 Leinster final coming up, and it's very disappointing. But you know, the lesson should have been learned a long time ago. There's no point in getting involved with referees, because you know it just doesn't work.
Yeah, no, definitely.
See, everything was so subdued after the game. Well, you know, you're watching it, and no one was celebrating, and I don't think anyone knew what they stood in.
They weren't sure of.
No, they weren't.
The Parnell Park game hadn't ended, was it?
No, I see. I was at the Parnell Park game, so I don't know at the time frame, like, of which game ended first. But like, everyone should look confused, you know, that way. So I don't know. He probably just took that as a loss, you know. We're out, so went straight at beeline for the ref. But of course, like, you shouldn't. But I know you can be heated after a game, you know.
Yeah.
But you'll probably never see anything like this again when you had so much hung on 2 games, and the scenario changed several times during the course of those 2 games.
Yeah.
Teams were in, teams were out at the end of the day, and Galway were the unfortunate losers. So there was an awful lot at stake, and you know it was a tricky situation. But I go back to what I said originally. You know, unfortunately, there's no point getting involved with referees.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I wanted to ask you about hurling sweeper keepers, lads, because Christy O'Connor had a piece on the RTE website about this, and Christy provides me with a lot of pieces for the top of the show. But he was talking about, and this was a good stat, that Alan Nolan, obviously against Galway, we saw that, you were there, Mike, and he scored a sensational point from play. So it was played back to him, the wind was behind him, and that was only the second ever point from play from a goalkeeper in the championship, which I thought was an interesting one. Yeah, Stephen O'Keefe is the only other one that scored a point from play. But it just made me think the sweeper keeper is a big thing in Gaelic football now. Yeah. Do you think it could potentially come into hurling, where a keeper's coming out, he's creating that extra man, he's getting far enough to be taking pot shots? Is that the way the game is going to move on to?
It's not even pot shots for me. Like, I finished my career as full back for the last year or two, and I'm a huge advocate to use your goalie all the time. Like, Al was behind me when I was playing, and he's so good at, and he's such a long delivery. Like, it's not even about getting a point or two, it's just his delivery. And if I'm picking the ball and facing my own goalie, why would I throw a ball over my shoulder when I don't know where it's going to go, I don't know who's behind me, when I can just pop it to a goalkeeper?
And does he look for it back? Because that's the big thing.
He'll roar at it back, and all good goalkeepers will, because they're facing the pitch, they have a vision, and if they're expecting the ball back, which they should be, they can pick out already before you even give them the ball who they're going to pick out on the pitch. So I'm a huge advocate of full back lines using that goalkeeper, and the only reason you wouldn't is if you haven't got confidence in him. So, and from my point of view, I would be roaring my head off, especially when I played half back, if a corner back didn't use his goalkeeper. No, it's great to see them score.
Here's some puck outs, right? So he goes to the corner back.
Yeah.
The corner back gives it to him immediately, and he drives it down then. And you're like, why didn't you just drive it down when you had it clear?
Yeah.
But is there a case where they'll give it to the cornerback, they'll get it back, and then they'll keep coming to draw the man? Do you know that kind of way, which we don't see that much?
No, that's a dangerous game. I suppose that's from a puck out, but I'd be talking about from play. If you're tackling a corner forward and you get a ball and pull it back, you know that way during play,
right?
Because the goalkeeper can spot everything. Then I'm not too fan of giving it to a cornerback and then giving it back, because it just delays the play.
I think so.
As a forward, it delays the ball coming into you. You know that way. So
well, if you give it back to the goalie and just drives it, well, then it defeats the purpose of actually doing it, unless he wants to rob a few yards.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be too fan of a goalie running past the player, because they're not used to it and they could get tagged. You know what I mean? You do see them slipping up then. But during play, I definitely give the ball back. Now, I don't want goalies shooting from 90, 100 yards all the time, because they won't. They'll go over 1 in 10. Maybe, you know. But I didn't realise that stat. Now I thought a lot more goalies. I've seen Stephen Keefe loves to ride up the pitch. Now he'll go out of his goal 40 or 50 yards, but he's excellent at it. You know, so.
No, he is. What do you think, Michael? Do you think the game will go that way?
Well, there's two different things to it. First of all, teams that are retreating so far up the pitch now, there's probably a huge pocket of space.
Yeah.
And if you can have a goalie, I mean, you have the Laois goalie on Sunday in the roll, and he can drive the ball about 114 and a half yards, like absolutely no bother to him. And most keepers are good strikers at the ball. So it might be an option for a scorer every now and again. But what I can't understand is, the goalkeeper putting the ball to the full back and giving it back to him. And now the goalie is the only player on the team on his puck out that has the ball in his hand, that can look at the entire pitch, that there's no pressure on him. Yeah. He can make a decision and there's nobody interfering with him.
Uncontested.
Whereas when he gets back that ball, he's under pressure. The shot is rushed, and you know, it's very difficult. And if that puck out goes wrong, you know, the chances are you can see the goal. I can't understand giving the ball to the full back, but there is certainly the option, as Mick said there, I mean, of getting the ball back to the keeper from general play, particularly if you're under pressure and you can't see what you're going to do with the ball. Or usually there's a free line of sight back to your goalkeeper. Certainly, I think that's coming more and more into the game, and I certainly would be in favour of it. But the short puck out to the keeper doesn't much with me, because you know, one of these days going to end up at the back of the net, and not alone is it 3 points. It's much more than that, because it will absolutely demoralise the team.
Oh, it does, yeah, and it lifts the opposition as well. No, I think we're all in agreement with the little tap to the corner, the tap to the full back and getting it back. No. The only time did it work for Cork against Clare in the Munster final one year, where Clare were dropping off them, and Nash ended up being able to get those extra few yards with the win, and he was dropping them right in on the full forward line.
Yeah, he was.
And that, on occasion like that, maybe, you know, it might have.
Yeah, but Damien Callan that day was taking his man on and bombing up and down the pitch. Like, if a cornerback gets it, normally you play up the wing, you take the man on and pop it to a wing back, you know, and it's just a safer option than popping it back to it makes no sense popping it back to the goalie at that pace. But like, I definitely think you're going to see goalies being used as that sweeper a lot more, Willie, and not in a shooting sense, as in giving them time to get up the pitch and pick out a man. Even if it's from midfield, you'll have more time to pick out a player, and that's the benefit of it. Yeah,
no, exactly. I saw Paddy Purcell was interviewed during the week, Michael, and he was talking about none of the Laois players haven't played in Croke Park before. Only, I think some of them were in a minor Leinster final in 2013. And were you in that same position with Westmeath last year? And how did you kind of get them acclimatised to Croke Park? Did you get a training session in it before, or does that even happen anymore? I remember back in the 90s when I was a minor and we'd never played there before, we got a training session on it. Now, we couldn't do much on it, but you know, maybe it broke that kind of maybe fear in a little way of having to go there. How did you deal with that?
Well, I'm really smiling when you say that we have a training session, because when we got to Croke Park before the final last year, the players weren't allowed to walk on the pitch, even their runners, until until about maybe 20 minutes before they warmed up. When they got there first, they weren't allowed on the pitch, so there was no Christian warm up. We had a few players. We had Paul Greville and a couple of more players. Derek McNicholas, who had played there previously, but by and large, it was a totally new concept for the players. I don't think it bothered them. I think they were so delighted to get the opportunity to play there. And I'm sure it'll be the same way with Laois on Sunday. Westmeath have played there last year. I don't see that as being a major advantage. But I think it'll be, you know, even Stephen, it'll be down to whoever performs on the day. But players, I think, are so delighted to play in the mecca of hurling, really, which is Croke Park. And you know, it's been used for the Christy Ring, and I think it could even be used for more games I'd like to see more games played in Croke Park, because at the end of the day, it's not the exclusive property of the elite players of this country. I think, every opportunity should be given to give fellas and guys a chance to play in Croke Park. As well, an advantage on Sunday, I don't see it as an advantage. Westmeath did play there last year. They were beaten. Maybe that's a bigger advantage, the fact that they played in the final and lost the final. But I don't see the venue having any significance.
Right. There must have been a lot of nerves in that dressing room the first time for a lot of them to play there, was there?
Well, actually, we started very well in that game, and we were hurling really well. That game was decided in probably in a 60-second spell just before half time. We had a chance. One of our players was playing, the slap was through, and the ball went inches over the bar, and within 20 seconds was in our net at the other end. Then the half-time whistle went, and straight after half-time, we conceded a goal to a very good Carlow team, it has to be said. So I think they were the significant moments. I don't think he never stayed any player in the game. I just think that, we had a chance and we didn't take it, and that was the English's fault. He was very unlucky with it. And, they got 2 goals, and after that we were playing catch-up.
Right. Okay. What about you, Michael, in Croke Park? I suppose the Dubs always get a back door into Croke Park anyways. You've got your favourable not as good as a wink there with the boys.
Yeah, look, I suppose there was 1 or 2 years there with Dalo, and they were saying to it, like, do you want to? We could play in Croke Park this year or play in Parnell Park, and for us, we love Parnell Park. It was a fortress for us, but at the same time, if you're going on to the All Ireland series, you're going to
get used to it.
Exactly, you're going to be playing in Croke Park, so you do pick it, and it's obviously a tougher place to play against the bigger teams, because they would actually play there more than us in the hurling. Like the likes of Tip and Kilkenny would be there quite a bit more than us, and I think it's a fantastic place to play, Wooly. I think it's a joke that stewards will stop you walking onto the pitch half an hour before the game, and when you arrive and your runners, just to get the feel of the place and the size and just get used to it. But I was shocked reading Paddy Purcell's interview that he did 2 media events in Croke Park this year, and there was only 2 times in Croke Park. Like as a player, and hadn't touched the sod. Like, it's incredible to think of it, So I also read remarks online this week people saying, "Oh, players aren't babies; they don't want to play in Croke Park," and it's a huge thing to play in Croke Park for players, because, as Michael said, it's the mecca of hurling. To play there in front of your friends and family, especially in a final, it does mean so much to players. And look, you forget sometimes that I'm from Dublin, I'm going to get chances to play there that players haven't played there at all in their career, and how big a moment it's going to be. So it's going to be brilliant for these players on Sunday.
Yeah, no, it definitely will. So it's fantastic, and I think that's the magic of the Joe McDonagh Cup, that's given these players a chance to play there, Michael. Like, I mean, Cheddar Plunkett makes a good point on this show that the Joe McDonagh Cup is all good and well, but is it just something just to toss away and leave players, leave teams just stay there, or is there an actual plan to get them up out of that and get them into the All Ireland series? So he likes it, but definitely wants more of a plan in place to help the counties to get out of it, rather than just saying, here's a competition, go enjoy it or whatever.
Well, what I would like to see is, I'd like to see an extra team in the Leinster section. I'd like to see 6 teams in the Leinster section, because at the end of the day, then it's going to take exactly the same amount of time to run it, because everybody will be playing 3 games every week instead of having to buy and some team will be playing. It's a bit unfortunate for Carlow, because they came up and now they're going straight back down again, which is a pity. I mean, somebody moved to the idea that when you get up, you stay up for 2 years. I don't think that's feasible, but I would like to see 6 teams in it. And the same way the Joe McDonagh Cup a couple of years ago, there were 6 teams in it, and suddenly the GAA seem to have this plan. When something is working really well, somebody comes up with an idea to change it, and sometimes, in my opinion, that should be the opposite. So I would like to see 6 teams in the Leinster Championship. Now, Munster is tricky enough with Kerry, and it's funny really that Kerry, if they won the Joe McDonagh, they'd have to play the bottom team Munster. And how you get around that, I don't know. And maybe the other 5 teams in Munster, it shouldn't be sacred. Your position in that championship shouldn't be sacred. Maybe everybody should have to fight. But it's a great concept. It's brought on hurling. There's no question about that in the last couple of years, because you're playing at a decent level, and you're actually getting good referees, because you're getting the referees from the Liam McCarthy as well. So it is a very good concept. It is improving. We need to look at it and maybe tweak it further down the road. But as I said, my change would be have 6 teams in Leinster. Yeah,
okay, that's not a bad one. Come here, I have to talk to you about Waterford before we start talking about this Leinster final. What do you think down there? It's been realistically, it's been an awful championship for Waterford.
It's been 2 awful championships. I mean, that shouldn't be forgotten. Last year was equally bad last year. And Everybody's disillusioned, everybody's disappointed. I mean, the people seem to think that the players down tools now. I'm surprised if that's true. It's very hard to say somebody would put on a county jersey and not perform. Certainly, they haven't been at their best. From my point of view, what I would say is, if a player dons the county jersey, if he puts the jersey on his back, there's no room for not fighting and not going for the ball. If there is a problem beforehand, don't put on the jersey. But it's been disappointing. It's going to be very hard to turn it around. I would say there's still a lot of good hurlers in Waterford, and Paul had a very difficult year. He came in first and things seem to be going okay. Got to the league final, and from that moment on, it seemed to unravel. I would say what was hugely significant was the player game. I'm beaten by a point. Didn't really play well in Welsh Park that day, but could have won the game. And if they had won that game, who knows what would have happened? But it's everybody is pessimistic, and and there's talks of unrest, there's talks about all the different things going on, and I'm not privy to that, and I don't know what's true or what's not true. But we're in big trouble. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, well, the talk of unrest, nobody really seems to have a definitive line on that. But at the same time, all the players that he dropped for the last game against Cork, that would definitely point to a little bit of unrest. Do you know what I mean? He dropped a lot of the leaders on the team.
Yeah, but if you go back at Waterford's history over the last 5 or 6 years, a number of managers, players weren't happy with managers. You can't just change the manager anytime you like,
Yeah.
And maybe we need to look at the appointment of the managers. Maybe players need to have some kind of a say in that. They shouldn't have the final say, but maybe they need to be consulted. But it's the fact that he dropped. But and funny enough, after dropping some of those players, the performance improved. And I thought the last day, they thought they did put in a good shift. But as Ken McGrath rightly said, that's the very least you expect from players, to give every ounce they have when they're out in the pitch. But it's a real tricky one, and where we go from here, I don't know. And it's a pity because still the nucleus of a very, very good team. If everything was right, that we would have a good team and we'd be there or thereabouts. But there's a big job on hand, and I don't know whether Porrick stays or whether he goes. I don't know what's going to happen. Or if he goes, whoever comes in has got a big task on hands. But ultimately, the players must take some of the responsibility themselves.
Well, that's the thing. We don't know whether Porrick Fanning is going to go. We don't know if players want him to stay. I know that happened to you in 2014, that players had a vote and you ended up leaving the job. Wasn't that right?
Yeah, well, look, if you go back to 2013, my last game as Waterford manager, we drew with Kilkenny and they beat us in extra time. These are the cold facts. I haven't actually spoken about this until now. That day we drew with a Kilkenny team and we were lucky not to beat them. That Kilkenny team went on to win 2 allowance. Everybody talks about the fantastic progress that Waterford have made since. That's very much open to question. The following year was a disaster. Now we in the Munster Championship we won over the last 12 or 13 matches we won 2 or 3. That's a very poor record regardless of who's in charge. So we did get to an all-Ireland final and we were unlucky maybe not to win it. But overall, we have underachieved in the last 4 or 5 years. 6 years. There's no doubt about it. There's no point in painting it up any other way or dressing it up any other way. That's the core reality of it. And so now we're at the crossroads, and what happens next is going to be very important for the development of hurling in Waterford.
Yeah, definitely will. I think there's no argument against Waterford have underachieved in the Munster Championship. The stats don't lie in that. I can't think of them offhand, but I think they've won 4 Munster Championship matches in I don't know how many years it is. So
they've won 3 since 2012.
Is that it? 3 since 2012. Yeah. Jesus, that's not good.
Since 2012, yeah. Won the first year I was there, and won 2 since, and haven't won after that.
But will you'd say
which is a damning stat?
Yeah, very damning.
It's with the talent of players they have. It's very hard to question why that's happening, because there's no doubt they've hugely talented players and you could name them. They keep coming through, and it's just interesting to see what is it then? Why can't you put your finger on it? Because I think if any other county them talented players, they'd be winning games or challenging for all Irelands. So why isn't it happening in Waterford? I grew up loving the team at Milan, Shannon, Tony Brown, Ken McGrath. Loved the team. They were just great to watch, and they went out and it was just the freedom they played with, But maybe if they had a bit more structure about them, they would have went on and won All Ireland. I don't know. It's just that kamikaze hurling that they played. It was brilliant to watch,
Yeah.
And you never knew what they were going to do on the pitch, and it was great to watch. But It's very hard because you'd say if they hadn't got talented hurlers, you'd say, oh, right, Waterford aren't doing well, but they have.
They have some, but you say they have some, but like, I don't know, Michael, like all their good players, now that Kevin Moran is probably on the way out, Brick Walsh is on the way out, Noel Connors might not have too many years left, all their good players are off the one minor and under 21 team. Like most counties need more than just one team to fill a senior panel. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, Limerick have had a number of success at under 21. You saw Clare, I think Clare won it 3 times.
They've had 2 and 3, yeah.
But like, we were probably, this team was probably at its peak about 2 or 3 years ago when the like of us and Leeson and those fellas came through, and some of the under 21s came through. And like Kevin Moran and Brick was still young enough to make a difference. And what 2 players, they've been 2 outstanding players. But that's my point is looking forward, it's very hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel now. I'm not saying it isn't possible, but it's going to be a tough slog, and a lot of things have got to happen, and everything has got to be right for us to succeed now. First of all, whoever is in charge, everybody's got to be completely behind us, and we've got to perform. And our best players, and some of our best players on big days, haven't been at their best. There's no question about that. And everything has got to be right for Waterford to succeed. You see Dublin now. Dublin are doing very well at the moment because everything is right. They're obviously happy campers. They're playing really well, and they will give somebody a fight before this championship is over.
But I'll say this with Dublin, right? If you had named this Dublin team to me 5 years ago, or like in the last 3 years, and named the players they have, there's no massive superstars in the team, really. Like, they're just really good hurlers who are sticking to a plan and playing under the way Matty Kenny has them playing, and they're doing brilliantly under it. Like, when you look at the team itself, you never would have said, oh, that's a team that could challenge for Leinster, that's a team that can challenge for Northern Ireland. But the way they're hurling, that's the way they're going. Like, they have no massive superstars. Like, you wouldn't say they've all stars all over a pitch, but they've really good hurlers on lines, and then they've lads who just work their socks off and stick to a plan, and that's what's happening under Matty Kenny. And I think, like, if you look at the Bennetts, Jamie Barron, Tyg de Burka, Austin Gleeson, the Mannies, they're still going to be there with Waterford. Really good hurlers. So if you can get lads around them, working hard, supporting them, and working to a plan, I couldn't see why they couldn't do the same thing, because that Dublin team isn't full of superstar hurlers. It's just they have a plan and they stick to it and they work hard for each other. Yeah, so maybe. Like, it's hard to put your finger on. I just think Waterford should be doing better with the players they have. Yeah, definitely. They should be doing better than this year and last year. Right, lads, we'll leave it there and we'll come back and we'll preview the Leinster final. Yeah, so this is a weird one to preview the Leinster final when I just completely remember previewing this only 2 weeks ago. So, I mean, it's difficult to know. Like, Kilkenny are strong favourites for this, lads, in the bookies, 8-15. Wexford are 2-1. I wouldn't have it that far apart now. But, like, I mean, maybe because Kilkenny have done it in Croke Park in Leinster finals. Wexford haven't. Like, Wexford were blown away really by Galway. Mick here in studio in the last time they played in a Leinster final. Kilkenny know what they're going to expect. Can the sweeper work in Croke Park when it's so much ground to cover? Maybe this is all feeding into it. Yeah, look, Wooly, since we found out these two teams are in the Leinster final, I've been to and fro myself. Like, it's such a difficult one to call. I think, like, Wexford have some players that can hurt Kilkenny with pace and fitness, like Lee Chin, Liam McGovern, Diarmuid O'Keefe. I think it'd be really hard to stop in open spaces in Croker. Matthew O'Hanlon did a great job marking TJ the last day. It's a lot different to man mark a fella in Croke Park though than a smaller pitch like Wexford, because it's just Matthew O'Hanlon's really good in the air and so is TJ, but TJ might get space. If the ball breaks down between them, he might be able to pick it up himself rather than getting so many bodies around him to get in on the breaking ball. That might be one tough aspect to get it, That's what Kilkenny are going to have to look at though, to get TJ on the ball more, because it's gonna happen again, So it's going to be very interesting to see what they've learned from 2 weeks ago to bring to the Leinster final. But again, I go back to the experience Kilkenny have, and that's why I'm tipping to that edge of Kilkenny winning, because just the players that have been there and played there and they know how to win in Kilkenny. And I fancy Kilkenny, and also with the frees, TJ is just so clinical with them, and Lee Chin has been hit and miss all year. And you had a really good day the last day with frees, but Croke Park's a difficult place to take frees because on the ground it doesn't feel like there's much wind. When you're taking him out the pitch, it can catch with the wind, and he's inconsistent throughout the year, so I think that could be a huge factor on Sunday. Yeah, it's actually funny in Croke Park. You'd be sitting in the press box looking down, and the flags on the sideline, one side are going one way and the other side are going the other, because it's coming in swirling around. It's an interesting one with the TJ, because Wexford really have his number, Michael, and other teams
play this usual traditional game where they let the centre forward come on and, you know, go out into midfield and pick up ball, which is madness really with TJ Reid because so much revolves around him. But Wexford man mark him and TJ doesn't like it.
Well, it'll be very interesting, I think, to see where Kilkenny decide to play TJ Reid on Sunday.
Yeah.
I mean, they played him as a deep lying centre forward, and like he was having to go out the field, and I think the midfielders were and the two wing forwards are programmed to crowd that area. So it'll be interesting to see. Then they may just decide to throw him in corner forward or throw him in maybe somewhere else, but it'll be much more difficult. But yeah, he's a major factor, but also it shouldn't be forgotten that like a Walter Welch is back now with a game under his belt. An absolutely key player, and he couldn't have been at his best the last day. Owen Murphy was out for a while injured as well. He's back. Richie Hogan has got more game time, and Kilkenny have a few young fellas. And you know, Cody seems to have this incredible knack of bringing fellas, putting them in for a game, and they're not going well, and maybe to take them off or maybe drop them and start them again the next day, and they're flying. One thing you can be sure of: any fella puts on the black and amber jersey is a really good hurler. And they have a winning mentality, whether it came from St. Kieran's or underage. They have the winning mentality, and they have a belief in themselves. And I remember talking to Phil Larkin a few years ago. I met him down WIT, and he said, what keeps young fellas on the ground, he said, in Kilkenny, is they're walking down the street with your 3 All-Ireland medals. The fella walking up against you probably has 5 or 6, so you can't open your mouth about it. So that tradition is there. That's inbred in the players. And Brian Cody's backroom team will make sure, first of all, they'll give 110%. They're good players. And then, of course, you have the like of PJ and Walter Wilson, Paul Murphy and those fellas to give them a boost and egg them on and drive them on and lead out in the pitch. Because anyone never shot the leaders out in the pitch. And when you lead good young fellas, when they're good hurlers, when you have some fellas show them the way, and very often, you know, a new player can be born in Kilkenny overnight. We've seen that over the years, and so it's going to be a cracking game. But I think Wexford will be able a real chance, because you know Wexford have played in fits and starts, but there are indications this year, you know, that they're a decent side and they have some really, really good players. But you touched on Lee Chinga, he's going to have to play the game of his life, and another 5 or 6 with him. I mean, to win this Leinster final, Wexford are probably going to have about 10 fellas playing really well, another 5 fellas playing blinders. But they are capable, and you know, it's going to be, there won't be much in it. It's going to be an intriguing contest.
Yeah, no, it definitely will. That's an interesting one with TJ Reid, because I suppose when Wexford do flood that middle 8, why send TJ out into it?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? That doesn't really make sense. I suppose now, if he plays in the corner, he'll have a sweeper covering him, Foley. But I'd
probably pick him up.
But I'd nearly rather that than sending him out into that battle zone with a lad stuck beside his hip.
Yeah, but sometimes Cody has that mentality, will he, of just go out and play, and he doesn't really seem to bother him who's marking who, and he'll just expect TJ, and TJ have the confidence that I won't be beaten again for a second day out here, you know that way. And look, Croke Park, as I said, it's difficult. He'll need Kilkenny players to run at him, and if they run in his direction, Matthew Hannon has to come to him, or whoever's marking him has to come to him, and then he's there for the pop off. And Kilkenny will need that, just to run at that Wexford backline, because that's how you create that space for him. Because if, as I said before, if you go high ball, it's not really an option with Matthew Hannon, because he's very good at it. So you have to break it down to yourself and win it then. So it's going to be interesting. I think Colin Fennelly will have a huge say as well. He loves playing in Croke Park. You've seen him at Ballyhale. He just seems to come alive with that space, and he just loves it. And I'd say him and Liam Ryan are going to have some ding-dong battle here on Sunday, because he just loves the space and he loves taking on his man, and they're 2 physical men. So I'd say there's going to be a few scalps on Sunday, and it's going to be interesting to watch. You know?
But I think with Liam Ryan boxed off on Colin Fennelly, Michael, you'd imagine that Walter Walsh will be put in the corner where Wexford wouldn't have they wouldn't have a big fella probably to mark him. I'm not sure where he played against in down in Wexford the last day, so maybe playing him in the corner where he has, like you said, has that game under his belt, and get a few high balls into him.
Well, I mean, the warning sign for Wexford is, if you go back on Kilkenny's history over the last 10 years, go back to All-Ireland finals and big games, when they drew big games, they pulled something out of the bag. They pulled a rabbit out of the bag for the replay. They did some different things, move fellas around, but even introduce fellas off the bench. Cody's always had the capacity to do that. When he's had a good look at the opposition, and weighed up all the consequences and weighed up all the permutations, he's very often, along with his management team, they've very often done something different. And that's the big test for Wexford. I mean, Wexford, if I was the Wexford management, you can expect just about anything. Any player to play anywhere is what I'd be saying. And if Kilkenny, they've often done it, and they've done it successfully. And, what they'll do on Sunday will be very interesting, but I guarantee you something. there is something coming down the track.
Yeah, no, it probably is. The battle of the sweepers would be interesting, lads. And I think Pádraig Walsh's point, the last one, like, this is the thing. Like, there's no one better to play that role than Pádraig Walsh. But I'd be telling Pádraig Walsh, every time you get the ball, Mick, is I want you, once you pass that, I want you to go again.
Yeah.
We'll get you back. And if you're not back, it's not the end of the world. But I want you to hurt them. You're a spare man. And there's no one better to hurt them. And I think, like, not enough teams put manners on Wexford when they do this kind of sweeper thing, because it's always, oh, well, we'll leave our man back the same as him. And, you know, it's Wexford actually dictating the sweeper, because Foley will come and attack a bit. And the other team doesn't really do that much because they're not used to it. But I think that point he scored at the end, maybe we'll turn on a light switch in Cody's head and go, here, hang on a minute. Yeah. I want you to do that every single time you get the ball.
Yeah, and what surprised me with Pádraig Walsh is his pace, Willie. Like, he seems to get away from fellas.
He
doesn't
fast,
look it.
Yeah.
He's lightning fast. He's so good in the air. There's no reason why he can't get up the pitch, because when he does, he seems to score every time. Every time he goes in that long rangey run, he scores. He's a great strike and he's very accurate. So I'd be telling him to get up the pitch all the time. It's even that give and go ball, because he creates that space all the time. And look, it'd be ridiculous if they didn't, because there's definitely going to be in space in Croke Park for him to run into all the time. And yeah, he has the fitness, because he never seems to struggle getting up and back or around the pitch at all. So I don't see any reason why he shouldn't. And the big thing is that the Kilkenny crowd get behind him. Like, if he's that Dahi Burke figure, like if he catches a big ball or a big block or gets a big score, the Kilkenny crowd get right behind him, and it's huge for Kilkenny. So I think Cody be in his ear telling him to get up the pitch all the time. Yeah, the space is going to be there definitely on Sunday.
Yeah, I think it will. And like,
but the thing that amazes me, Colm, about the sweeper system, it just amazes me. But I mean, I can't understand anybody letting a sweeper loose, because a sweeper is a sweeper for a reason. Number one, he's usually a good hurler. He uses the ball very, very well. And if he's that good, you can't afford. I mean, if you have 5 forwards playing against 6 backs, or 6 forwards playing against 7 backs, they decide who's loose. It's like we played 14 men. Get someone loose. The team with 14 men decide who they mark, and they decide who to let loose. So the sweeper cannot be let loose in any team. I think it's crazy stuff. So the sweeper has got to be marked, and then you pick. They will sit down and look at it, and they'll pick, and they'll decide who they want to let loose. And usually the fellow you let loose is the guy who's not the best striker of the ball in the team, not the best deliverer of the ball, but you have to mark the sweeper.
So you think one of the Kilkenny forwards, Billy Ryan or something, should be coming across onto Foley and saying, well, I'm standing on you, and whoever's marking me can mark me as well?
Well, I would far be it from me to tell Brian Cody what to do, because don't worry, I know Brian was a good long time now when he came up with the answer, but as I said, that's my thinking behind it.
Yeah,
you mark the sweeper.
I agree.
You pick someone, let him loose. It works from there.
Larry Corbett, Tommy Walsh.
Yeah, no, but I remember that. But I know from Gaelic football a lot, and we're dealing with sweepers a lot longer probably than hurling. Is that someone should move across and actually mark the sweeper, and then you have 2 men marking you.
Yeah,
and that just looks silly.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's common sense. Teams have their way around it. Like, say, Davy Fitz will have a plan there. If someone does go on Foley, he has a second sweeper to say, right, the cornerback, you go up and mark that half forward. Now you're going free. Like, it's very hard to do. It's easy to say on paper, but it's a hard thing to implement, because most managers will have a second fella there just in case. And then as the game loosens up, you can sort of resort back to your own game. You know, game takes a life of its own.
Yeah, but at least you're making him think, because
absolutely,
you know, you're making him think. So James Maher came on for Killian Buckley the last day. Michael, Diarmuid O'Keefe was after running Buckley ragged. He'd been out injured a lot. He got 4 from play off him in the first half. James Maher did much better on him. So you'd imagine James Maher will take Diarmuid O'Keefe the next day. So where Killian Buckley comes in is another question. Maybe centre half back. I'm not sure what you think.
Well, Diarmuid O'Keefe had played so well in the first half of that game. It's very hard for him to expect him to keep it up. So, you know, some of that may have been fatigue. Some of that could have, and obviously the change, a new man was, you know, that was a factor as well. But no, Davy Fitz is a shrewd enough guy too. He'd be looking at all the options, and he'd be seeing what worked, and he'll be hoping to unhinge that Kilkenny defence and maybe spring a rabbit as well. But you know, it's just fascinating, and who knows how it'll unfold, or who knows how they line up. But at the end of the day, success is a consequence of making good decisions, particularly under pressure. and it could come down to use of the ball, it could come down to making good decisions, and maybe another refereeing decision, maybe a ball come back off the post. There's a whole number of different concepts could be into it, but it's absolutely fascinating, and I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, exactly. What do you make of Adrian Mullen, Mike, here playing against Laois? It was last night he played. He played 53 minutes of an under-20 match. Isn't Brian Cody some man? The way, there's very few managers in the country would have allowed that. I'm just surprised he stayed on the field for 53 minutes because Kilkenny were hammering Laois.
It's brilliant, Woody. Like as a young lad, you're crying out for games, and there's nothing worse, especially when you're with your county. There's a club game in a week or two, and there's nothing on. You're sort of afraid to ask. Like, look, can I get away for a week? Like, there's a game beats training every time, hands down. And Cody seemed to always have that. If it's a club game or it's under 20 game, go out and play it and come back. And he doesn't seem to fear injury. And Kilkenny lads strive off it. It works for them. And games be training hands down every time. So I think it's brilliant. And I'd love if more managers did it, but they don't. They're petrified losing players. Yeah. Cody just doesn't seem to. He just has confidence in his panel, no matter who's there. And Mullen is a really good hurler at the moment, and he's really important to Kilkenny, and he's still letting them go out and play a game. So I just wish more managers would take the lead off that.
I do agree. It definitely works for them. But at the same time, they were always going to hammer Laois, Michael. I don't know how you would have handled it. Would you have let him off to play?
I think it was actually good for him, and it's very refreshing to see that Brian Cody did that, and also even to broaden the debate a little bit. Even club games, Brian Cody's always encouraged his players to go in and play club games.
Yeah, they've played 3 championships. They've played 3 championship rounds of championship already. Kilkenny have,
and that's refreshing because at the end of the day, county players have to get up so much now. I feel it does them good. To go into a new environment, even for a week or two, just to freshen them up, go back to their own clubs, experience a different brand of hurling or a different concept, and then they come back, they're mad to go again. Whereas a lot of players are tied up. It's almost a concentration camp now. When you're with the county squad, you're training 4 or 5 times a week. You have gym sessions. You're doing all those years, and I think a lot of players would benefit from that. And it was great to see that young fella play, because at the end of the day, that's his number one grade, playing with his own age group, and that I have no doubt will improve him as a player going forward, and to give that is also obviously a big benefit to that particular age group.
Yeah, I just didn't like him lining up against Laois. He scored 2 goals, so I wasn't.
What's Cody doing?
Yeah, Cody, will you look after that lad for this Leinster final, for God's sake? I know. Okay, I'll get your predictions on this, Mike. I'll start with you here. Kilkenny are 8-15. Again, I don't think they're 8-15. Wexford are 2-1. I'd have it closer to this, although I'll shade it to Kilkenny. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm the same. I said it earlier. I was to and fro for the last week or two, but I'm going to go with Kilkenny just for experience. They have some big players back, and I just think they're so used to Croke Park, and they know the space, they know the pitch. I think it will stand to them. So I'm going with Kilkenny by a goal. Okay, what about you, Michael?
This might have draw written all over it, and I don't know when the last draw has been in Leinster final. It might have a draw written all over it, but if you were to really, really press me, I think Kenny could just about shade it, but by God, they weren't having this.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'll have to pull you up on that, Michael. The last draw in the Leinster Championship was last year. It was Kilkenny and Galway, wasn't it?
In the final, was it in the final? Was it the final?
It was, yeah. The replay was down in Thurles. Yeah.
Our Internet Cup, which is very bad down here, was out of touch.
We'll say I don't know when the one before that was, which I'll be completely caught on. Right, we'll come back and we'll do Paddy Power predictions. Okay, Paddy Power predictions. We've already done our prediction on the Leinster final. I'm just going to get a prediction off you on Limerick Tipperary here, lads, because we're going to be covering this game in Hayes' Hotel in Thurles tomorrow night. So, incredibly, Limerick have lost twice in the Munster Championship. Tipperary have steamrolled their way through it, and Limerick are favourites for this. They're even money, and Tipperary are 11-10 outsiders. I presume the Gaelic grounds has a big factor in this. Absolutely. Mike, who do you think is going to win this? Oh, Barrett maybe being out, or Bonner Maher. Barrett might be still in. I'm
going to go with Tipperary. I think the way they're playing for Sheedy, they're playing together, they work hard. There's a lot of talk about the tip forward line, but I think their back line has improved so much this year, and they've the strongest half back line in Ireland with the 3 Mars. Look, I can understand why people are going for Limerick. It's in Limerick, and when Limerick play well, they seem to beat everyone in the last year or two. But I just think it's a completely different tip side under Sheedy. They've that belief there, they've work ethic, and they find each other with the ball. And I don't think he was afraid to show his hand. He's saying to Limerick there to his go, I don't care what you see, what you do, we're going to go out and beat you. And I think that will breed confidence within the tip panel. So I'm going for tip. Right. Okay. What about you, Michael?
Yeah, actually, I've changed my mind on this a few times. Carl Barrett is, if he was playing, I'd be very confident. I'm still going to go with tip. at the end of the day, I mean, I was very surprised with Limerick in the last day in bad conditions that they persisted with the almost type of handball, throwing the ball around in poor conditions.
Yeah.
But, Sheedy's got down the old road. He's picked 3 really strong guys on the half back line, as he did in 2010. Nailed the puck outs, pushed up on the puck outs, forced Limerick to hit the ball long. I'm not convinced about, the couple of Limerick fouls and, Shane Dowling was on the list there and 1 or 2 more as well. I think they're better coming off the bench. I think Tipperary are in a really, really good place. And ironically enough, Limerick could lose this and still be in the championship.
Yeah.
And they could lose another game. They could lose 4 games in this year's championship, which is incredible. They'll certainly, because they're going to be in it after Sunday. But to me, I like the way Tipper moving. Use of the ball is very, very good. And they have the capacity to score goals as well. So Tip just about shaded, but get another cracker.
Yeah, this will be an absolute cracker. I'd nearly go for Limerick because it's going to be good weather this weekend. Maybe their short game will work a little bit better. We don't know if Cottle Barrett's out or in.
No.
It depends on how bad the hamstring was. But it's definitely Bonner is out. But we want to move on to the Laois Westmeath, the Joe McDonagh Cup game. Again, I don't see these odds being very accurate either. Like, who am I to doubt Paddy Power, who gets most of them right? Laois are 1-2 favourites here. Westmeath are 15-8, 2-1 outsiders. Westmeath are obviously in the final last year, and were beaten by Carlow. What do you think of this one, Michael? Would you have Laois that far ahead?
No, I certainly think it's a 50-50 game. You go back to the last year down in Port Laois. Maybe Laois won at the level they're at this year, but Westmeath won that game and drew them this year in Port Laois and 122 each the last day. And I know that Laois were already qualified and they used a couple of young lads and they still have the core of a really good team. But
yeah.
I'd like to think that, having worked with Westmeath for 4 or 5 years, this particular group of players is now coming to their peak. They have a lot of guys between 23 and 27 years of age. A lot of really good hurlers who have played well on big days. And remember a couple of years ago we went to Thurles and played really well against Tipperary. And certainly this is a real 50-50 game in my opinion.
What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, I was shocked last year in O'Moore Park when Westmeath beat Laois. That was the first win over Laois in 50 years. I couldn't believe that. And Westmeath are a decent team. I got beaten by them in 2006, and they just have that belief in that team. And what worries me is everyone you hear saying from Dublin anyway, it's like, you're going to be playing Laois. You're going to be playing Laois. They haven't even thought about Westmeath. And as you said, I think it's 50-50 here on Sunday. I really do. I'd probably pip Laois though if I was put to it. I just think Eddie Brennan there. They've hurled really well this year. My worry for them is they've let teams back into games this year, which is a worry. Like Antrim nearly pipped them back, Offaly nearly pipped them back. So they're not killing off teams. So the longer they leave Westmeath in it, I think it's a mindset now that they're going to be worried about that.
Right.
So if I was Westmeath, I'd keep pushing, and look, there'd be nothing in it, but I'm going to go with Laois. Right.
Okay. What do you think they'll do with Tommy Doyle, Michael? Did Carlow last year in the final play a 2-man full forward line? Is the idea of Tommy Doyle to drag him out of the edge of the square a bit like Daithí Burke, who's a commanding full back? Is that what Tommy doesn't like? Is that what Carlow did well with him?
Jeez, that's a terrible question for an ex-Westmeath manager. To be honest about it, with respect to Laois, I'd love to see Westmeath win this game. I know that Eddie will have a plan. There's no question about that. There's no point in dropping high ball in the top of Tommy Doyle.
No.
But he'll dump it up all day long, so I would suspect they'll try and create space in front of him. They'll try and bypass him. That's the logical thing to do, but it's easier said than done, because the problem for Laois is that one of the best hurlers in the country is Angus Clark, in my opinion. I think he'd be on any other county team in the country. He's an absolutely fantastic player, and he's a great reader of the game, and he'll probably cover off that space. So, Eddie Brennan, again, is a shrewd guy, and he's been in a lot of situations with Kilkenny, and he's now coaching, and he's a good coach. And funny enough, I got him up to Westmeath to take Westmeath for one training session last year. So there's a bit of irony in that, but it won't come down to that. There's a load of factors in this game. There's a load of things. It isn't just the one battle there. Obviously, that's an important factor. And Tommy Doyle, at his day, is potentially one of the best 3 full-backs in the country. But it's about using the ball right with the pitch. It's about performing on the day. When you get to Croke Park, the first thing you hope for is that your team will do itself justice and really perform. And there can be mitigating factors, or there can be stage fright, there can be nerves, there can be injuries, there can be a fella sent off. There's a lot of different things can mitigate and determine what's going to happen. But I have no fear that Eddie Brennan will definitely have a plan. But I also think that, Westmeath have an experienced team. They're around a few years, and they've only one loss this year, and that was a disappointing loss against Kerry. I saw them against Offaly, albeit Offaly were poor. They played some really good hurling, so I would just love Westmeath to go out this Sunday and play to their potential.
Yeah.
Because if they do, they will show everybody just how good a hurling side they are, and they are a really, really good hurling side.
And they're just, Michael, on that, because you would have seen both teams a lot closer. They're two teams that play a similar enough style. Like, I mean, they're not driving it long. They're mixing up a short game as well, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of really good hurlers in Laois as well. I mean, first of all, they have a good goalkeeper. Matthew Whelan probably plays centre back. Pinky, Ross King, all those fellas. And Eddie has introduced 3 or 4 young fellas. Even young Gahan came on the last game, scored 2 late frees. I think he's from Cameron.
Yeah.
And they have Leah Colm Stapleton, knocked out. They've introduced a lot of players into the team. Some of the older guys have packed it up and gone for various reasons. So there's an awful lot to look forward to. And the big disappointment is the whole country or the whole world would see how good a game this will be, because I think it will be a cracking game. And the prize is absolutely huge. The prize is so great. That's going to cause pressure on itself. Westmeath have had a great season. Obviously got out of Division 2A at last, and thankfully, so they're up with the big boys now. They've only lost 1 game all season, and again, Laois, really good players, good side, good coach, good manager. So it's fascinating, and it may come down to one stroke of genius or a mistake, or refereeing decision or ball come back up. It's that tight, and don't be surprised if it goes to a replay.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised at all. One thing I like about Eddie Brennan in Laois is that you can't predict how the forward line's going to line up. So against Antrim, Paddy Purcell played full forward. I didn't even know he was able to play full forward. Like, he's played midfield in other years. He plays wing forward the last day. Not the last day, the game against Kerry. Dwyer was in midfield against Kerry. He's been wing forward. He's been in the corner forward. They move around even within the game, So, like, I mean, I like that. There's a bit of flexibility about it.
Yeah, it's like the teams Eddie Brennan played for, Wooly, like they switched constantly, and moved in. And I suppose as a talented forward, you should be able to play anywhere. And I'd say they practice like that in the matches. And reading Paddy Purcell's interview recently, he said that in the matches and training, whoever's playing well and performing, Eddie Brennan's playing, and that's it. Like, and if you don't play well, you've no argument because you're not going to start. So it seems to be like just. He's telling them to go out and play, and if you perform, you're playing. And as a forward, it never bothered me. I started my career at Dublin. You could be corner forward, centre forward, wing forward. You should be able to play in and around the pitch, because if you're moving, and it's much more harder to mark, because you could be, as a corner back, you don't want to be a half back. As a half back, I don't want to be corner back. And most of these teams now are being told you're going to mark a man for a game. I don't want you staying in your space, so it just makes things harder for a backline. Yeah,
it's the rotating thing.
Absolutely.
You mentioned Matthew Whelan. He'll be full back, I think, Michael. Ryan Mullaney will be centre back, and he's got a huge job on his hands with Killian Doyle. How good is Killian Doyle? He's posting up some scores.
Incredible. Absolutely fantastically talented player. Can score right or left, great energy, has great free taker as well. Great vision, really good vision. Good on the ball, uses the ball well, knows when it's throw, knows when to have the shot, knows when it's when to lay the ball off. He's a really, really talented player. He tends to play a little bit deep, so maybe at least push up on him. But certainly whoever marks him will have his hands full, and that could well be the key factor. If you look at, there's like one game this year, I think he got 17 points. Yeah. And like, he wasn't around last year. Gary Greville wasn't around. There was 3 of those guys away last year, and also the cornerback with a broken leg. So this is a much stronger Westmeath team this year. But that could well be the key to the game.
Right, okay, that's interesting. Like, I mean, the way this debate, and we have it on the show here the whole time, will the number 6 follow or will he not follow? Like, why not put a wing back on Killian Doyle and tell him to follow, and let the centre back drop off the less dangerous wing forward? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Why don't they just do that? There always seems to be this big debate about. Sorry, go on, Michael.
Not that simple. Not that simple, because you know the hole in the middle of your defence. I think the centre back has got to stay, and if the centre forward pushes out, I think the 2 midfielders have got to close off the space. Two wing forwards come back again. Centre back has got to stay more or less. I wouldn't say rigid in his position, but if he's gone, and if you saw it, even in the football the Cork and Kerry, how many times did Cork go through the middle of the Kerry defence and no sign of the centre back?
Yeah,
I mean, the centre back, if that position isn't manned, you're now providing a clear dual carriageway to goal. And teams will love that. Or a motorway into goal, they will love that. They'll come off the shoulder, they'll break through. The very least they'll get is a point. Maybe a goal, a penalty. That somebody's got to mend that position.
Yeah, no, that's true. Well, I was saying that the centre back, even if he was marking the wing forward, would still hold the centre. It's just the wing forwards go back working all the time. They're not as big a threat.
So you wouldn't be able to, because the wing forward would just stay out wing forward, and you'd have to go out and mark him. And the centre back, it's just pivotal, because it's just a game of cat and mouse these days. You have to go with him so far as the midfielders are going to cover him then. And then you have to be there to cover your full back line and not let the ball spray through the middle, because you're just leaving things wide open. So it really is a game of cat and mouse, and you see the best centre backs at the moment can do it. Like they have the smarts, the hurling game management to do that. But the centre forwards now more and more are just moving back and moving across the pitch, and it's tougher and tougher to mark them. They used to be not as mobile centre backs, so they had to stay at centre back. But these days they're all good and they get up and down the pitch. But I agree with Michael. You can't just go all the way to the pitch and leave a big gap in the centre of your pitch.
You can't leave Killian Doyle free. This man's scoring 17 points.
But that's what I'm saying. You follow him to midfield, and then you're telling the midfielders you have to watch him. You can't let that easy ball come through the half forward line.
Yeah. So it's pawning him off.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
So we'll get predictions here. I'm fairly sure which way you're going to go on this one, Michael. We'll start with you.
Absolutely. I mean, it's going to be. It's going to be a fascinating, and it's going to be a really great game. I'd love to see Westmeath win it, and that's nothing against Laois, and I'm fully aware of how difficult it will be to win it. But I think this time, I think they're good enough to win it. If they perform, I think they will win it, and I think they'll just edge it.
Okay, what about you, Mike?
Yeah, from a neutral's perspective, I'd love to see Westmeath do it as well. I think it would mean so much to the county if they won it, but my head is going with Laois. I just think they have too much in the bag, and Eddie Brennan factor will get them over the line. Yeah,
well, I'll go for Laois as well. I think they're on such a good run, and I do think they'll have a plan for Tommy Doyle. Michael, they'll go 2-man full forward line like Carla did, and they'll take him out of his comfort zone. And I know you didn't like to answer the question, but I think it's a guarantee that Laois will just leave 2 men inside. I think.
Well, what I would do then is I would man mark the full forward and let Tommy Doyle play in front of the full back.
Right, okay, yeah.
He's
so
a big man.
Let Tommy
get around Tommy Doyle.
Let Tommy Doyle kind of stand out in front.
Yeah.
I think just on that, from memory, Michael, Carlo played a 2-man full forward line and played the two of them very wide, did they? So like they kind of took Tommy Doyle out of it altogether, did they?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, if you go back to the Carlo game, Carlo beat Westmeath twice. We actually played them 3 times last year. They beat us twice, and the reason they beat us is they were better than us in each day. And sometimes people get lost in tactics, and if you really look deeply into it, it's because the entire team played better. It wasn't because one individual factor. That can have a big say in it, but overall, Carlo were really good last year. And Tommy Doyle is human as well. Not every day, very hard to play 100% every day. And some days, he was carrying a bit of an injury there for a while as well. So, but he's a really, really good fullback. And go back to the game again. What a contest is going to be, and it's so important for both teams. There's so much at stake. I wonder did the public realise how much is at stake in this game? There's so much at stake. But I hope that Westmeath bring their A game to the table.
Yeah, there's loads at
stake. They will.
Yeah, listen, well, I hope they don't. So we'll leave it there. All right, listen, that's all we've time for. We'll be back on Monday, and we'll obviously do a review of the whole weekend. So we'll talk to you then.